Get ready to play hardball in the Kingdome.
Take me to the ball game. I want to see the Ants. The Mariners are playing hardball. Did it again and again and again. Did it again.
Princess Tours, the vacation company, brings you the best show in baseball when the San Diego Chicken plays hardball with the Seattle Mariners and the Baltimore Orioles tonight in the Kingdome.
What up? This is Myron, and you are listening or checking out, if you're checking this out on YouTube, the Rye Bread and Mustard, a Mariners podcast that Down on the Docks on the other side of the tracks, 5-star dive bar podcast. And with me, as usual, is my boy Hanno up in Edmonds. Tonight we're going to be talking about, obviously, Bryan Woo. You've seen the thumbnail. Is he your new Mariners ace? We're, of course, going to be talking about Dan Wilson's first series as a Mariner manager, what we saw from him, what we saw from the team here with, the first, series victory we saw since the Sunday night baseball victory over the New York Mets, when we thought everything was peaches and cream. And of course, JP Crawford back in the news. He's down rehabbing in Tacoma as we speak, or as we spoke. We'll see how he's going to fit in when he comes back and what kind of roster moves maybe we're going to see. And Randy Arozarena, his family's coming into town. Big pivot series here with the Mariners and the Tampa Bay Rays, because the schedule looks like it's supposed to get a little bit easier after that. And of course, we'll get to some comments, some concerns, and things like that. Sorry about us starting here late if you're on YouTube. Hanno, you had an emergency call. What was going on?
Bird was in a family member's house. She couldn't get it out.
Were you successful of getting this bird out?
Yeah, it wasn't bad. I mean, my aunt's got some tall ceilings, so I just used a broom to kind of move it along, and worked its way out the door.
So everything's safe.
On a Sunday night when you want to. Always something on a Sunday night when you just want to sit around and not leave your house. You know how things go.
Yeah, and so the bird got out safely, as you said. So we're not going to have PETA on our ass here.
No, none of that.
All right. So we're coming off a series victory. On the back of Bryan Woo's great performance. This is what his he's given up now 6 runs in his last 6 starts. He's on a nice little run. Really, even last series and the series before that, you weren't getting victories. It's just really refreshing to say just an excellent 7-inning performance by him, despite what happened in the first inning there. But usually when like Dan Wilson, hard new words coming off my tongue, got to get used to it, says, when you're going to get to these aces, you usually got to get to them early because they settle in. They got the 2-run shot there in the first. But Bryan Woo settles in 7 innings strong, and we get to say, which led and paved the way for the victory for the Seattle Mariners. Had enough timely hitting there in the game, just enough, but we'll take it. Series win. What'd you see out of Bryan Woo? What'd you really enjoy today?
Oh man, just same as always here lately. In his last 7 starts, looked really good, going deep into the game. It seemed like even that the pitch count, I'm sure, was a bit of a concern for Danny, meaning he was in the 90s, but he let him, he probably left him in a little bit longer maybe than Scott did. I don't know. Seemed like he let him finish that inning. It was good to see, but he's had this whole transformation about going deeper in games and not spending as much time in the training room. I don't know if you read that article a couple weeks ago with Adam Jude, just talking about how Cal had a talk with him saying, man, you can work through some of these things. Don't spend so much time in the training room. It's not that bad. And he's really taking it to heart and kind of, went out there and left it all out on the mound. It's really nice to see.
I missed that article. Thank you for bringing that up. Another thing in the why Cal is awesome, right? Thing right there. that's a leader of this team. I love it. Bryan Woo, just think about it. He doesn't have too many miles on himself right now at this point in the season. And let's just say this. Let's be hypothetical, Hanno. Let's just say the Mariners make a playoff series. Let's just say it. I'm not saying they're going to for sure, but let's just say you do make this series. Is he one of your 1 or 2 starters? Let's just say this. Is he your number 1 starter right now if this series started right now? I think we're having a couple of technical difficulties. Do you hear me, Hanno?
Yeah, I missed your whole spiel.
I said if let's hypothetically say if the Mariners were to start a playoff series right now, would he be your ace? Would he be your number 1 as of right now?
I mean, he's pitching the best of all the guys so far, but probably not.
Where would you see him? Would you see him as one of the starters, or is this somebody that you would be bringing out of the bullpen?
If we would have mentioned this a while ago, I would have said absolutely be in the bullpen. But the way he's been pitching, it's definitely a conversation you got to have. I'm just not really sure yet. I mean, he could be very dynamic coming out of the pen in late innings, or if one of your starters didn't do well. I mean, it's definitely a possibility, but I don't know. It's hard to say yet. He sure looks sharp his last few starts and really punched in there. I mean, you're starting to see his secondary stuff being a little bit better. I mean, everybody talks about how easy his motion is and how the ball just explodes out of his hand. I mean, he just blows guys away, and they're just like, it's unbelievable how easy of gas he throws and how many guys swing and miss. I mean, he's been on a heater lately, that's for sure.
Yeah. Look, last 7 games, 3-1, 1.65 ERA. And in those 7 games, 43 2/3 innings, only 8 runs in that run with a whip of 0.73, 39 strikeouts to 4 walks. He's very efficient. Remember when he was only allowed to throw like 13 pitches, and he would get he would really be very efficient with it.
Yeah, I mean, it took him a while with that injury to build up, and where the Mariners had confidence in him, and he would labor even to get to 60, 75 pitches, but so much more efficient now going after hitters. Like I mentioned, the key to me is seeing that secondary stuff, even though his fastball just dominates people, but when you get in the playoffs, we
got 4-time Gold Glove winners. Sorry about that. Go back.
It's all right. Just cut me off when you want to. Cut it out.
He's doing great. I'm sorry. We're on a schedule here. We're on the hurry up offense. We're keeping this game in motion, I should say. Just like Dan Wilson seems like he's kept this game in motion. We're going to take a real quick 30-second break, and let's talk about it. The Mariners won a series. Let's get into it. This is good stuff.
Rye Bread and Mustard, a Mariners podcast.
We have the one and only Mr. Tom Hutler. Do you have any of your favorite stories from the Kingdom?
There was a time we had an earthquake, and so they were going to evacuate the building. So I was like getting up to go leave. They go, "No, you can't go. You got to read these safety things." It's like,
do we need to tell them that there's smoking's only on the exterior ramps?
Yeah. And Dave came shooting past. He signed off. I'm going, wait, I'm the only one here.
Listen and subscribe to Rye Bread and Mustard, a Mariners podcast, wherever you get your podcast.
All right, we're on the quick hurry up here, like we said. So look, Dan Wilson's first victory. Let's not focus so much on all of the shit that, like last week versus Scott so much. Well, I don't know. Actually, no constraints here, Hanno. Wow, what a series! All close games. San Francisco Giants probably right at the level that the Mariners are at right now. I'd like to think that the Mariners were better. I've obviously got better starting pitching. I think even though we didn't get great performances from Luis Castillo, we definitely didn't get Kirby's best. You did get Bryan Woo's best. But let's take it back to Friday night really quick. There is one point of the game. I'm sure anybody that is listening right now, I'm sure there's some of you that turned the game off. It was pretty funny. Hanno and I were talking, and we played a game of chicken after the Mariners had put up those 5 runs, I called you, and we both didn't want to allude that the other person was watching the game. We were like, "Did you watch?" "No, I turned it off." "Yeah, me too. What are you watching?" And then like we could just tell we were both lying to each other. But yeah, I mean, the hot dogs from heaven comes out the inning before. After that, it was an atrocious inning, a typical inning. I could hear the boo birds on Friday. And then, yeah, just the hits from heaven came. Couldn't quite finish the job, though, after San Francisco made a pitching substitution, but they got it there in the 10th. A big walk-off for Dan Wilson. What a day, considering that the news came down the day before. Obviously, not everybody's on the same page. This is a promotional, or this is a PR move. Dan Wilson comes in and gets a win, a walk-off win, I think kind of set the tone for the series.
Yeah, some unlikely heroes. I mean, we can go over the 6 straight hits from the team, which was incredible. I haven't seen that in many years, but for me, it was the hold in the 10th by Colin Snyder with a ghost runner on, and then the unbelievable at bat by Louis Rivas, just being able to give a real professional bat, find some things off, and then fisting one in for the game winner. So really good to see for some unlikely heroes.
We were pumped. I was calling you. I was doing my remix of Livin' La Vida Loca. It was Livin' Leo Rivas Loca, upside, inside, out. Livin' Leo Rivas Loca. Roca makes me a little hungry there. Yeah, but good for him. You know, you got JP coming back, so probably going to have to make some sort of roster move. You got plenty of outfielders now, so you really don't need Dylan Moore for the outfield, but you saw Dylan Moore in motion throughout this whole series, green lights on the bases. I think that was, I believe that was Friday night, right? Where I couldn't remember who couldn't get the bunt down. Somebody couldn't get the bunt down, and I believe they just gave, was that Moore the green light for third base? Was that Dylan Moore? And I mean, that was huge. We saw that throughout the series, but yes, that night, just a big win. Next day, you were just kind of seeing more of what the problem is if the Mariners pitching isn't on point, right? Except here's the difference. Lots of guys on base. And I will say, I did hear Dan Wilson say this on Saturday after the game. A lot of balls hit to the wall, some in the air. There's a couple of close ones. You know, the Mariners end up not being able to really, though, cash in. Again, lots of guys on base. You're seeing the frustrations from the fans during that as well online. That was a tough loss, considering Houston lost that game as well. So you could have definitely, if you could have just got that big hit, you pick up that extra game. That was like a big swing inning there in the 8th and 9th if the Mariners could tie it and go ahead. That was what you go from either being 4.5 to 3.5, right?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned pitching. I guess one thing I did take away from this series is how that Mariners gave up a lot of long balls. I think they gave up 6 in this 3-game series, and it just seemed like a lot, especially at home. So that's kind of something I noticed. But Kirby just didn't have it that night, did he?
No, he didn't, and it just got off to a weird start. Yeah, you had all that momentum from the night before, or I should say, it was a big moment. You probably had a celebration. They were kind of overplaying what it was, of course, on television, on radio, and it was like, I hope these guys go home and go to bed and realize this wasn't the clincher here, and next day they come back to the ballpark right off the bat. Randy makes that great diving catch out there, almost knocks himself out, and then immediately Victor Robles goes up to the plate, gets hit with a ball. So we got to at least see a half an inning of what the Mariners envisioned of the outfield going down the stretch with Robles, Rodriguez, and Arandia Rosarena.
Yeah, I mean, that's just Mariner luck right there. Did you hear anything? Was the X-rays negative on
yes.
him?
His X-rays are negative. I didn't check so much on it here in Game 3, but he was on the bench that day. He had it wrapped up, but they are negative. But I would assume maybe he probably might miss this next series. with Tampa Bay coming into town. But look, the Mariners needed. We all know this. This was every one of these series is pretty much must win. They do it. Houston wins one against Baltimore. So the Mariners pick up a game over the weekend, 4.5. Coming up next, though, we have the Tampa Bay Rays, who I believe have the same record as the Mariners. That's also, as you know, Randy Arozarena's squad. I'm really looking forward to possibly seeing him, and I want to make a prediction. This is my click to pick. I think this is going to be his breakout series here against his old friends.
Yeah, I mean, he sure started out great, and he's kind of slumped on the road trip. But yeah, I hope so. They're going to need a lot more production out of including him and a bunch of the other guys. So yeah, what a great time to start it going for Randy. That'd be great.
Yeah, if you go to Seattle Times, there's actually an article that Divish just put out about Randy and the Rays, just kind of really, given the history of what he's done for and what he meant for Tampa Bay. So I think this is one of these things where he's probably we're going to see a lot of antics, a lot of fun. If you go to this article, he's mentioning that all the good relationships he had there. Obviously, we know when he originally was traded, he went up and sat in Randy land. But he says right here, he goes, "Those are my ex-teammates. We have a good relationship. We're going to have some fun." Especially him and their center fielder, was it Jose Siri? He said, "Me and him have a good relationship. We created that relationship, and it's going to be fun seeing him again and facing him again on the field." And as far as everything else that's been going on, he said, quote, because we don't hear a lot from Randy. He's kind of like the beast mode version of the Mariners. And that, of course, probably has to do with the language barrier, but he does seem quiet. Trying to keep my confidence. I just have to continue working outside the field because I know things are going to come. I'm not losing sleep over it. I'm not helping the team as much as I want, but I know it's just a small streak and things will turn around. And I wholeheartedly believe that. Like, this is the first slump, and he seems like he's breaking out of it, and he's doing other things out there. He's just stole a base here in the last game. This is his first slump as a Mariner, and honestly, the first slump he's had in a couple of months. So I'm not too worried about it, but it'd be great to see him pop off here. And, if you look at the schedule too, this Tampa Bay series, Hanno, this is like not the last, but you win this series, you afterwards don't want to look too forward or ahead of ourselves, I should say. But we have Anaheim and you have a series with the A's. So if you can get this one, you're kind of setting yourself up to possibly get yourself on a nice run, but you got to take care of this series.
Yeah, absolutely. With the way the Mariners have played against Anaheim this year, absolutely. I mean, you have to win every series. So, yeah, you got to win this series and continue winning. Hopefully get some sweeps in there with you, like you mentioned, one of those upcoming teams that are not having good years. But as you mentioned earlier, with San Francisco having the same record as us and us being pretty even teams, I totally agree with that. I mean, and I expect these games to be really hard and think that Bay is probably pretty even with us as well. Yeah,
and it is big for Tampa Bay. And these guys trade everybody all the time. You call them the Tampa Bay Fleecers, but they hang in there. This has wild card implications right here. You got to win this series. You pick up a game on the wild card, you're still 6.5 out, but Kansas City has a rough schedule. So this is a team you got to take care of, not only for what you're trying to do for yourself for the West, for the wild card. So I know it sucks that we're back in this situation that we're in, but at least you're getting playoff baseball series right now. I guess is the Tritons up on it. The Tritons down is everything we've went through, the highs, the lows, the losing streaks, and you're one game over 500 right now.
Yeah, both things are definitely true.
Yeah. So it looks like JP Crawford, though. Here's some good news. JP Crawford, right around the corner. He's here right around the corner. He's already down in Tacoma. Today, at the time of this recording, 0 for 3. But that doesn't matter. He's just getting the game speed going. That's going to be huge for this team. I would assume if he comes back and Robles isn't ready to go, he'd probably be your leadoff guy. I would assume. Be interesting to see what happens when everybody's back together. What do you think about that? And what kind of roster move do you think will happen when JP returns?
Yeah, even though Rivas has played pretty good, I would imagine that he will be the one option down. I could maybe think of another guy, but it just seems more likely they would be Rivas going down, even though he's did a nice job coming in here after Dylan Moore getting most of the time at shortstop. He's kind of settled in there, played really good defense for the most part, and got you a game-winning hit, and was solid, could put the ball down on a bunt here and there, but I would imagine it would be him.
Yeah, I would think so too. I think you're just probably going to go with Dylan Moore down the stretch. I know Scott Service would 100% be going with Dylan Moore down the stretch. It can be interesting what Jerry and Dan and everybody else, I don't know exactly how they're doing all of that now. I would assume there's a little bit of a change, I would assume. We've only seen 3 games, so we really can't say, oh, this team looks completely different. Like it's not the Dan Wilson fingerprints on here. We did get to see though the in-game decisions and stuff, but all 3 games were tight. There was no cakewalks, win or lose for Dan Wilson.
No, there wasn't. I mean, you're right. That'll be interesting to see who hits in the leadoff spot, whether it be Robles or JP. It was interesting today seeing them going with Rayleigh, but he got scratched early in the leadoff spot because he had some flu effects, and Dylan Moore jumped into it. But that'd be interesting if they went with a Rayleigh. That's kind of a one I never thought of. Maybe it was just because Robles was out, but you would think it has to be Robles or JP hitting first.
Yeah, and here's another thought. What if Robles does have to go on like a 10-day deal for, God forbid, for some reason? I really feel like you need him back, but maybe you see that happen possibly right now.
Yeah, I'm not sure who they'd bring up. I haven't really thought about it that much.
I was thinking if he goes on the 10-day DL, maybe you just keep Rivas up here.
Oh, yeah, that's a possibility for sure.
Because Dylan Moore could play in the outfield.
Yeah, like he did today. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. I know we're kind of speeding through things here, but guess what? There's a damn series about to come out. We're going to take roll a quick little break right here. We're going to come back and we got comments here. We got some other comments that we have stacked up. Want to get to those before we get out of here tonight. Again, sorry about the late start. If you're listening to this on the podcast side, this is all just boring banter to you. But you know what? If you're here on the Rye Bread Mustard YouTube live show that we do right now, you get to see all the BTS fuck ups that happened during the show, and we'll be right back with some comments.
Supercross this weekend in the Kingdom. The Coors Beer Supercross doubleheader. Get ready, Seattle, this Saturday night at 7:30 and Sunday afternoon at 2. The 1988 ANA Supercross Tour, Motorcycle Mania, on an incredible dirt battleground that treats man and machine the same way. With absolutely no respect. See the best. National champion Jeff Ward, former champion Ricky Johnson. Tickets at all Ticketmaster locations, including the Bond, Tower Records and Video, and participating Honda dealers. The Coors Beer Supercross.
Hanno, before we get to the comments from our show, Heidi Sumner, your personal producer, my personal sister, sent in some stuff on Saturday. She was just going, what is going on? She pulled all these. We'd love to go and look at people freaking out online. So let's check some of these out. This was on Saturday. Here's some good ones. These were the best ones she could find. The franchise puts more effort into launching wieners into the crowd than putting together a solid competitive team. I thought that was a good one. I
agree with it.
Oh man, this was another good one right here. It's a light bat. Okay, make the Mariners 1995 again. If he can make them hit as half as well as they did, we might be back. Here we go. Are Jay, Tino, and Joey also going to be hired? The desperation. Here's another one. Just a reminder, next year is the 30-year anniversary of the 95 team. I can already see bobblehead making emails now. This feels like a pure pandering move. Front office and ownership know fans won't call for Dan and Edgar's head like they did for Scott and DeHart because their history. Interesting.
Agree.
Yay, 1995 bobbleheads. 95 bobbleheads and fireworks. That'll keep the fans for sure. Bringing Ichiro. Another comment I had was, do you think Ichiro and Edgar could platoon at first base better than one of the platoons we got going on? Let's see. Let me see. I got another one. A lot of scapegoat stuff. So people were, this is on Saturday when shit was going down. Let's check out our comments before I get called out of here. Randy can't be counted on, and he's slowly regressing since 2020. This is from Brendan. As a whole, was having a terrible year from a side a good 4-week stretch. Brandon, I think it was longer than a 4-week stretch, but yeah, that's what the Mariners do, right, Hanno? They go out and they go, our famous thing. That was the guy on our radar back in 1975, and they like to go after people on past years. So I feel like that's a fair comment also, but I think Randy's had a better second half of the season.
Yeah, I don't know how long it's been, but yeah, he has had a little bit of a tough stretch. I mean, compared to what he's been, but glad to have him compared to what we had, but that's saying something.
He also said, need to gain more than one game a week if we expect to make it. Yes. The Mariners had plenty chances to gain a lot of games this week. Did not do it. Seth, feel like something clicked in the last few games. Julio taking walks and others too. Seemed out of character, to be honest. I was surprised to see all the walks.
Yeah, I think some of their approaches was good. I still feel like Julio's really off, personally. He just looks in a funk to me.
I feel like we got to see Julio get that first home run, because it seems like this year too, when he gets one home run, they come in bunches, and sadly he was slowed down. You could tell he's not 100%. I don't want to hear anybody. I know they're talking about it on the broadcast. He wouldn't be out on the field if he's 100%. He's not 100%. And, he's soldiering through. Now those are some solid comments. Thanks. Let's look at the switch. He also says, it's not just Randy. None of our position players can be counted on. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah. Julio's taking walks because he forgot how to hit. Well, I think he's had better at bats. And I think that's Edgar talking about, like, hey, if you listen to what he had to say on Friday, I really enjoy what Edgar Martinez had to say, where he said, information today in the game is great for some players, but not a lot of players. And if that's not working for you, we're just looking for fastball and we're going to adjust. And with Julio, if you listen to the interview that he had on with I believe Shannon Dreyer or Goldie or Gary Hills before the game on the radio side, he was just saying he just honestly can see how hard Julio's trying too hard, and telling him just to look for these things, look for those walks. We also saw, I thought, Luke Raley this week hit the ball up the middle, even his home runs, even his flyouts, middle of the field. And that's what else Edgar was talking about, looking for that middle of the field. I mean, this is hitting.
Yeah, I just hope Edgar can talk to him about the discipline of the strike zone, because he obviously does not have it. I feel like he chases way too much. He's a efficient outsider. He's really trying to pull his hands in and drop the head on an inside pitch. He needs to focus on with the strike zone, and that'll help him out a lot. Yeah.
I was interesting thing that happened the other day. I kind of had a discussion with people when Randy Arozarena swung at that 3-0 bases loaded pitch, And some people are like, why would you do this? Why would you do that? I went back and looked at it because Ninja brought this up and he goes, I'm fine with it. He hit a double his last at bat. Maybe he's feeling good. And the ball was right down the middle. You just got to hit that ball. You just didn't hit it.
Yeah, if there's any 3-0 pitch you should swing at, it should be it. You're right. You just missed it.
But in the other arguments at that time, they were walking a lot of people in that game of, so maybe he throws that one strike there, then he can't, locate on the next two. So I hear both sides of the argument there. Brendan, Woo looks like a legit Cy Young guy if he finishes his last 6 or 7 like this. He'll be a 5+ WAR pitcher. Has he had enough innings? I know he kind of, we had to wait for him to come on the roster this season. I don't know. I haven't heard any Cy Young talk, but he had that other stretch too earlier on in the season that was franchise history making, better than Randy Johnson.
Yeah, I just think that it's locked up by Scooble for this year, maybe if he's talking in years coming up.
Yeah, Flick of the Switch says yes, it is right down the middle. I know. I was salivating over that pitch. Seth, Myron, where did you get your hoodie? That's a tight logo. This is Ozzy's bar. It's a karaoke bar, great sports bar, great place to go before, after events at Climate Pledge. I've never done a show there yet, but we're gonna definitely go down there. That's one of our places there, especially in Queen Anne Hill when I'm in Seattle, which I'm gonna be headed back up there this week, Hanno. Maybe check out a Tampa Bay game. We're gonna do an episode together at some point this week. We got to get together. Sorry to cut this one short. We just had some bad timing tonight, but it's. I'm bummed out that we got to cut it short because we actually have some positive stuff to talk about, but we also can't sit here and peaches and cream and try to end up just because one series. We got to see consistency. We got to keep winning these series, especially, Houston's probably going to bounce out of it. They gave you plenty of chances this week. It didn't happen, unfortunately, but hey, the Mariners are up 4.5. You got to take this Tampa Bay series. You got anything else to add, Hanno?
No, just hoping to look for good starting pitching, continue putting some runs up. I mean, what do they have this series? At least 4 runs a game, so that's positive, and that'll help them hopefully win more games than they lose.
That sounds good. And Seth asks, are you going to be at the game tomorrow? No, tomorrow is a travel day. We might be down there Tuesday night. And the last comment, guys, I got to stop tonight. They got to start taking some aggressive at-bats. Exactly. I think Edgar's, going to work with them. We talked about this on the last episode. This is the last thing I got to say. Usually when you make changes, you'll see things, or players get traded and they come over and you hear, well, I just had to see what they do, see how they approach things. You have this longer runway or a sample of seeing what's going on. Luckily, you have brought in somebody from the organization, and Edgar just knows hitting. But I think you're going to start seeing some stuff, I would hope, soon. I can already I felt like the at-bats were better. Maybe the effort in the at-bats were better, I should say, this weekend. Maybe the results weren't there, but I felt like the effort was better.
Definitely, there was some good stuff going on, especially when you string together 6 straight hits when you're down by that many. I mean, that was just beautiful, unheard of.
Yep. All right, well, we're out of here. Thanks for liking, subscribing, and all of that good shit. And with that being said, Hanno, you know what time it is.
How about that?